Yo, I'm Brian P. You're watching BadSeed Tech, and today we're taking a look at the Kraken Tournament Edition gaming headset from Razer. If this is your first time hanging out, please consider subscribing and drop me a comment to say hi. Now, walk with me here for a minute. I won't eat up too much of your time, I promise. This is my first headset from Razer. And that's no accident. To say that Razer hasn't traditionally enjoyed a reputation for quality and longevity in their headset line would be a polite understatement. But having owned a ton of Razer products over the years, I can honestly say I've never had an issue with either their keyboards, their mice, or their soundbar, which after 3 years is still a beast. I also know them to be a company that's constantly learning and tweaking in an effort to push their designs forward. And that's exactly what the $99 Kraken Tournament Edition is. So what we've basically got here is a Kraken Pro V2 headset with a USB dongle that's touting Razer's own in-house surround solution, THX Spatial. So in real-world terms, it's safe to consider this the next evolution of the Kraken 7.1 V2. But going over design real quick, the first thing I noticed was the sheer amount of aluminum that's present in the frame. Okay, the first thing I noticed was the generous amount of Razer green on offer here, but these are also available in black if you like a more subdued look. The design appears to be really stout actually. The aluminum comes through the headband, down past the slides, and finally terminates in the ear cup surrounds. It actually goes all the way around the outside of the ear cups. So these are hinged front and back on each cup. This allows for just a little bit of up and down tilt, but completely foregoes any kind of swivel at all, so I guess that's the trade-off. The sliders themselves do have adjustment markings, and the cable that extends from the headbands into the ear cups is positioned behind the slider in a way that would be really difficult to snag or damage it. And they slide really easy. I actually wonder how long this thing will be able to hold its adjustment over time. The outside of the ear cups themselves are plastic, and they should look pretty familiar by now if you're into Razer's products at all. They've got that black mesh insert as well as the Razer logo stamped on the outside, so no lighting and no RGB on this one. It's also pretty Spartan in terms of controls, as the volume adjustment and the mic mute are present inline on the cable itself. The cable's really flexible and braided, which I like, but it is permanently attached, which I don't. The only other feature on the outside of the ear cups is the retractable mic on the left side. Let's talk about these ear pads, because wow. First off, they're not that typical leatherette all over, which has a tendency to peel and flake over time. They are actually wrapped in some faux leather like that, but the area that actually makes contact with your face is like a heat transfer microfiber, kind of like we've seen with some higher end offerings from Sennheiser. They also have a cooling gel layer on the top, and something I've personally never seen before, they have a little hidden indentation in the cup themselves to allow a place for the stems of your glasses to sit. It's brilliant. You can tell that Razer's put a lot of thought into what it would take to comfortably wear these cans for an extended period of time. They do have a sheer fabric liner over the top of the drivers themselves, but this doesn't have any kind of foam pad to it at all, which you may need to know because there's a strong possibility these drivers are going to be touching the outside of your ears, so be aware of that. They're the biggest internal dimension of any ear cup on any headset I've reviewed thus far. When they say over ear, they really mean over ear. They make something like the HyperX Cloud Alpha feel like an on-ear design by comparison. This headset is extremely comfortable. There's little to no clamping force at all, so everything feels extremely light and cool, even for extended sessions. They don't do the best job of isolating outside noise, and they do leak to a pretty high degree, enough to bother my girlfriend that was sitting on a couch about 12 feet away. These are also designed to fit some absolutely enormous heads too, so no worries there, you big-headed bastard. The mic is retractable, it's built into the left ear cup, and you do still retain the volume up and down and mic mute controls in line. The reason why this is such a big deal for me is because normally you'll have an audio cable that mates to the dongle, then the dongle will go in USB. That's great if you have volume controls on the dongle itself, but on the times when you opt to use it wired to anything else, you lose the ability to have inline control. So it's nice that they're still on the cable, even when you're not using USB. As for the mic quality itself, it takes a little bit of dialing in to really nail it, but once you do, tonally, it's one of the better gaming mics I've heard.
Out of the box, even with the mic volume set at 100% in both Windows and Synapse, it has this really weird habit of stepping on your lower speaking audio. Like the gate is really aggressive. I'm basically screaming this passage, so I'm going to do this again at a normal voice with the mic right in front of my mouth. Out of the box, even at 100%, it has this really weird habit of like stepping on your lower speaking audio. It like basically vanishes in the mic. Gate is I recommend going into Synapse settings, disable the auto sensitivity, and crank that all the way over to high. It's worth noting in Windows audio settings, I do have automatic gain control or AGC disabled. The unfortunate trade-off here is that noise cancellation from the background is practically non-existent. So here's what it sounds like with some vocals and some keystrokes. These are MX Browns with dampeners. There are some additional options in here for the mic inside Synapse, like the ambient noise reduction. For me, it kind of introduces a lot of artifacts here. I've got to set to 60% for this test. I am typing away on these MX Browns, dampened in the background the whole time, so it does a pretty good job of filtering out the background noise, but it does impact quality a little bit. I would probably avoid this unless you were just in a really noisy environment or had an especially loud keyboard. There's also a vocal clarity mode, which to me makes it sound like most other gaming headset mics, which is to say pretty thin, nasally, and brash sounding. It's worth noting here that it also spikes the volume considerably. Take a look at those levels, and this is only on 55%.
It is annoying that the setup for the mic is so quirky, but if you can handle your background noise cancellation landing somewhere on a scale between barely any and sounds made up, then the actual vocal quality is pretty impressive. You will need to support the ear cup a little bit when you're pushing the mic back into the ear cup, but its pull-out game is super strong. All right, let's talk about this dongle, huh? Everything you would expect to be there is there. Volume up and down, mic mute, surround toggle, it's all there. Here's the kicker. There's a few things there you don't normally find. The first is chat mix, which has grown to become a deal breaker for me on headsets. If you've never used it before, it basically negates minutes of negotiation with whoever you're playing with to adjust their mic volume if it's coming in too hot. You get to decide on the fly how much of the audio in your cans is dedicated to game or how much is dedicated to your teammates' chatter. The other thing is on the fly, tactile bass boost control at a hardware level, which we'll talk more about in a minute, but you can basically boost this up or down no matter what you're playing without having to jump back into Synapse to adjust it. And side tone is here. It's lag free as well, and it sounds great. The entire back of the dongle too is coated in this really sticky like silicone material. You may have seen this before on the bottom of like mouse bungees. It's like really easy to clean, and you can just like stick it to the top of your desk and it stays put. I'm thoroughly impressed at the amount of audio features that are packed into this headset at this price point. Actually, I was already really impressed. And then when I found side tone, I about had to spend the afternoon giving my keyboard a thorough dejuicing. Gross. So the build quality's stout, mic sounds pretty good, and the feature set is the absolute balls. You know the deal though. None of that matters if the sound doesn't hit the mark. And the sound here just doesn't knock my socks off. So I guess the good news here is that Synapse offers a wide variety of options to where you can tailor that sound a little closer to your liking. The bad news is that you have to keep alt-tabbing in and out of Synapse to do that, and that actually crashed my game on more than a couple occasions. It sucks that it doesn't make a killer impression right out of the box. We'll talk a little bit about sound characteristics first, and then we'll get into the THX Spatial stuff. The good stuff is that if you enjoy volume and bass, this is the one. This is actually one of the few headsets I've reviewed so far that I do recommend for the PS4 because it has plenty of length in the cable to be able to plug in USB, and in doing so, you get way more volume than anything else I've ever heard plugged directly into the controller. It is worth noting when you use it like this, you don't get access to any of the surround stuff. It is stereo only. If you're on the Xbox, the dongle doesn't work at all. You're going to be plugging directly into the controller, but the Xbox controller generally provides a lot more volume than the PS4. So yeah, this thing gets stupid loud. And even outside the basic EQ settings in Synapse, you do have the bass boost adjust on the dongle itself. It's not clean bass per se, but there sure is a lot of it. Outside of that, it's kind of hard to explain the sound. There are crisp, sometimes harsh highs. There is definitely bass. The mids are audible, but not in a way that really bridges the lows and the highs in order to blend this together into one warm, cohesive production like you hear out of something like the GSP 300. Naturally, you do have EQ settings inside Synapse to help overcome some of this and tailor the sound more to your liking. I actually spent a lot of time tweaking this EQ, so just be aware that the drivers themselves are a little weak in the mids department. I was surprised to see that this headset can be pushed to 24-bit, 96 kilohertz in Windows settings, but in real world it offered no real meaningful increase in sound quality for me. There is something odd to me with the volume as well. When you put these on, you have a tendency to want to turn it up really loud so that you can hear all the audio elements of the game, but when you do that, something comes out of left field at like a deafening volume, and it's really uncomfortable. The announcer in Doom is a great example of this, and this only gets worse the higher you crank the volume up. Now, Razer also has an option in Synapse where you can normalize all the audio elements in the headset itself. I highly recommend you do this. Just go in, turn this thing on, bang the slider all the way to 100, and forget it exists. As for THX Spatial surrounding game, this was a miss for me. I'm not really a big fan of any kind of simulated surrounding game. I've only ever found one that really does it for me. I could get really into the marketing here and talk about how this technology supposedly differs from simulated 7.1, but the reality is at the end of the day, it's supposed to create a surround sound field. It either works or it doesn't. So due to my bias here, I tried to be really specific and really fair, and I tested this on a wide range of titles, including Doom, Overwatch, Hitman 2, Far Cry 5, Metro 2033, Black Ops 4, and GTA 5. Now, one thing that struck me as weird here, you cannot just grab the dongle and activate surround sound. You actually have to open your game, tab out into Synapse, go to the surround setting, pull down the drop down for your game, select surround sound, then tap back into your game. Now the toggle on the dongle will switch between regular stereo mode and surround mode. Initially, I was really impressed that the THX Spatial didn't negatively impact the audio in any way, and it took me a minute to figure out it wasn't actually doing anything at all. So in every title, I preferred stereo to THX Spatial. And not just from an audio quality standpoint either, also in my ability to pinpoint sounds. In this section of Far Cry, the helicopter was very easy to discern in stereo mode. With THX enabled, it sounded like the helicopter was literally everywhere, all around me. Gunshots also sounded really muffled in THX mode, as if I was firing through a pillow. In Hitman 2, crossing this bridge, again in stereo mode, it was very easy to picture in my mind where the location of the waterfall was, whereas with THX, sounded like I was standing in the middle of the waterfall. There's some good reasons to own this set, but for me, the surround is not one of them. In Black Ops 4, I got one of three outcomes. It either muted the audio altogether and I couldn't get it back, it made this really weird digital clipping sound, or it completely crashed the game. And I tested this on USB 2 and 3, same scenario both ways. Alright, so let's wrap this up. For $100, there is some heavy competition out there. What I like about this headset, it's really comfortable. It's light, it stays put, it accommodates a wide range of head sizes, and both the size and the feel of the ear cups are great. The channel for eyeglasses is brilliant, and the cooling gel layer is not just a gimmick. It really feels like flipping the pillow over. And the aluminum frame makes this thing feel really durable. I would throw this in a bag with no case, no problem, wouldn't bat an eye. And the feature set is crazy for the money, even edging out the SteelSeries Arctis 5. The chat mix, the bass boost control, the side tone is serious. The fact that you still retain volume control and mic mute on the inline cable when you're not using the dongle is great. Even though I would have really liked to see a detachable cable here. I understand you gotta keep costs down somewhere, but speaking from personal experience, a bad cable is a terrible reason to have to retire a whole headset. The mic is tonally better than average, but does fall behind in background noise cancellation, and do yourself a favor, leave all the mic options alone in Synapse unless you're gaming in a really noisy environment. The sound quality for me, I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. 7 on a good day, and I spent a lot of time tweaking the EQ and the settings. And the THX Spatial just didn't do it for me. So if you prioritize purely audio quality, there are better options out there at this price point. Nonetheless, these are a really balanced offering of build quality, comfort, sound, and feature set at $99. Overall, I was impressed with my first headset offering from Razer, but I wasn't blown away. In the next couple weeks, I'll release a review for a Razer headset I looked at recently that does land a lot closer to the mark for what I look for in gaming audio. Big thanks to Razer for sending these out. If you do want to grab one for yourself, I will leave an affiliate link in the description below. And that's it for this time. I'm Brian P. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that sub button, and until next time, stay up.